Good evening and welcome everyone. I am Sidra Naeem, the Deputy Lord Lieutenant for the County of Essex, representing Her Majesty the Queen. I would like to welcome you all to the Essex Faith Covenant event. The purpose of the Essex Faith Covenant is a joint commitment to a shared set of principles that guide engagement between faith communities and public services. It aims to promote open, practical working and strengthen community cohesion. The Essex Faith Covenant now has over 30 signatories across public services and our faith communities, encompassing 8 district local authority areas, including Basildon, Braintree, Brentwood, Chelmsford, Colchester, Morden, Rochford and Uttlesford, and is always looking for more organisations to get involved. Tonight you will hear about a number of projects involving public services and faith groups working together to enhance and support our communities. There will also be the opportunity to hear from you on the challenges ahead and how, by continuing to work together, these can be addressed. Tonight you will hear about a number of projects involving public services and faith groups working together to enhance and support our communities. There will also be the opportunity to hear from you on the challenges ahead and how, by continuing to work together, these can be addressed. I would now like to introduce a short film demonstrating the impact of the Faith Covenant over the last 2 years.
Back in October 2017, the Essex Faith Covenant was launched at first sight in Colchester, and we're delighted that in the 2 years following that launch, over 30 public services and organisations and faith groups have signed up to the Covenant and begun real collaboration on various community projects, which has entailed both those public services and the organisations involved to share ideas, to share resources, to share training. And that means that in our communities in Essex now, more and more vulnerable people, more people in minority groups are having their voices heard and are having better services provided for them. And in this short video, you will hear of many concrete examples of that work taking place. And we hope sincerely that the Essex Faith Covenant will continue to grow and to move from strength to strength.
Hello, my name is Leslie Cruikshank and I'm the Provider Quality Innovation Manager at Essex County Council. It's been a fantastic opportunity to be able to work with Chelmsford Cathedral on events such as the Dementia Fair, which is going on today. In the past, we've also run events around end-of-life care, and it's a really good opportunity to invite the public in and to be able to offer them the chance to see a whole range of different stallholders who can offer them support and advice around the issues that they're facing on a day-to-day basis.
So the 4Ts project came about off the back of a piece of research carried out by Age UK. The 4Ts, which is the villages of Tolleshunt Darcy, Tolleshunt Major, Tolleshunt Knights and Tollesbury, all came out as at risk of social isolation. So the first piece of work we did was hold some community consultations where villagers, local churches and other community groups came together to look at what existed in local villages and what we could do to support people at risk of isolation. What came out of those consultations was that actually in the local villages there was already quite a lot going on, so it was about telling people what that was, joining those services together and supporting the volunteers who are running those services.
Women Together is a voluntary organisation which helps ladies from the BAME community, which stands for Black, Asian, Minority Ethnic, and which deals with faith and how faith, prayer, meditation can help with mental health and anxiety. We have speakers from the interfaith sectors, from voluntary sectors, from other sectors like stress and mental health organisations, to talk to them, to signpost them, and to help them get into occupations. And then we always have a shared lunch, and this is where the ladies really enjoy themselves, because everybody brings in a dish, a native dish, to do with their own ethnicity, and then we all share that, we all eat together. And then we have an art therapy session in the afternoons, which also helps them with their mental health. The women who come along, they benefit greatly. It helps hugely with self-confidence, helps them with their everyday worries and problems. It's a way of networking, meeting other ladies who are in the same position as them. We also have white British English ladies who attend very regularly because it's a free art therapy session. And what that does in turn is it helps the women from the BAME community to learn with their English skills. So everyone is learning in so many different ways.
Hello, I'm Julie Sawford, Family Support Worker at the Mega Centre in Rayleigh. We're a Christian charity that supports families, children and young people in the community and here in the centre. Mega Centre's been here for 25 years this year. Originally started as youth support in the community, but over the years we've expanded to include families and children, particularly children with special educational needs. We work with lots of partners in the community, including Rochford District Council and the Police and Fire and Crime Commissioner, who support our work. One of the groups that we run each Wednesday in term time is The Mix, which is a group for children with additional needs and their siblings, a chance for them to come together, have fun together as a family and take part in all sorts of activities. It's welcoming, inclusive and anybody can just come along.
I come to a place like this to help my son interact with autistic kids. Something new, something different for him. For me, myself, it's nice to interact with other parents who've got kids like Charlie. I've been coming here, what, 5 months now, and it's been a great help for me with my son. It's just nice to meet other people, like-minded people like me, like-minded parents.
Hi, I'm Stan Keller. I'm chairman of the Chelmsford Jewish community, and I've been on the Essex Faith Covenant from the outset, and I'm now vice chairman for my sins, if I can use that phrase. Now, the Essex Faith Covenant, since its inception 2 years ago, it's helped to stimulate understanding between faiths and different groups, and just for that reason alone it's a good thing. But it's also, we chose isolation and loneliness as our first focus, and since then not only has it helped us look at other groups, but it's also helped us look within our own communities to ensure that our own members are looked after at times of when there's problems. But there's been many instances where the Faith Covenant groups have helped each other and supported each other. There's been social events, but also, for example, at Holocaust Memorial Day, most of the readers, in fact the vast majority of readers, come from all faiths, and because it's something that obviously affects us all, and more understanding can only help our community.
Questions. Now, Andrew, where are you? Yeah. You see, fancy getting a blind man to chair a Q&A. Andrew's the roving mic. Now, the brief I've given Andrew, put your hands up if you want to ask a question. Andrew will always be at the next questioner when the previous answer is finished, won't you, Andrew? Yes. Right, hands up, please. And off you go, Andrew. Let's get through as many questions as we can, or points you want to make.
Hello, everyone. Thanks, it was really...
Can you speak closer to the mic, please, and just if you can, tell us who you are.
My name is Samina, and I work in Broomfield Hospital, and I come across a lot of patients with mental health illnesses, and it was very interesting to hear that the faith groups are working for the well-being of and supporting patients with mental health issues, but is there any sort of contact if I want to refer somebody in the hospital? Is there anybody that I can do? do you work with Broomfield Hospital at all, or is it more with the local authorities?
Well, we have chaplaincy services either in the hospital. Do you want to talk to Anne Sidra? You're involved as well. So let me go to Tim. Oh, right.
Tim Blakely, chaplain, Broomfield Hospital, will talk.
So what's the point of having a panel? Thank you, Tim. You going to speak?
The question?
I thought you were going to answer it.
Hello, I'm Jane Caution. I work for Chelmsford City Council. I think it's just really sort of understanding or seeing the passion and the commitment from people in this room. I think my question is really how can we get that message across to the broader communities and other partner organisations that could have an understanding and come on board with what the Covenant is aiming to achieve.
Right, thank you, and I do apologise to Tim. I thought you were going to speak for longer, but Tim is clearly a point of reference to the hospital. There are also officers from the County Council here who can tell you about the mechanisms for referral. Sidra, would you like to talk about things that you think we could do to better get people's understanding across the communities? I think there's a mic on the table somewhere.
I think it's just getting the word out, really. We already have a Mid-Essex Interfaith Forum here in Chelmsford, which is doing a fantastic job. I myself am the Managing Director of Women Together, which is you know, very well known now, because we have so many ladies who come to us who have mental health problems and we fuse faith with mental health and do so many activities. You know, with the Faith Covenant, it's good because all the different organisations have all got together under one umbrella, and it's just getting the word out, really. The video which was shown earlier also can be circulated through Essex County Council.
Thank you, Sidra. I wonder if Daniel or Stephen would give us a brilliant example from elsewhere in the country where they've really got the word out well. This feels very powerful, you know. Just throw extra bits at it.
I think one of the areas that that comes to mind is the Places of Welcome initiative, which is started off, I believe, in the Diocese of Lichfield, but it's spread throughout the Midlands. And it really is a great opportunity of people coming together. And I think it's important in terms of what the questioner said about getting the word out. We need to positively get the word out. I'm afraid bad news travels fast. So I think we just have to positively kind of say, hey, I've heard about this group, they do this, that and the other. I've found in my experience of working for a faith-based organisation, when local officials suddenly get the idea, they can't help but beat the door down and that kind of thing. And that we need to talk about that a bit more.
And we can beat doors down too, can't we? Yeah. Who'd like to go next? And if we can have more than one hand up, Andrew can then go and position himself for the next question.
Good evening, everybody. Jane Gardner, Deputy Police, Fire and Crime Commissioner here in Essex. Thank you, panel, and thank you for all the presenters tonight. As always, very inspirational. Really interested to maybe hear a bit more about the challenges, but particularly with a lens on violence and vulnerability. We all know, we all watch the news, that gangs is a particularly growing issue for us all, and that's the same here in Essex. And I just wondered if there's any examples elsewhere in the country of where faith groups are working closely with local authorities and policing in that space.
Great point, thank you. Could Daniel or Stephen help us with this one?
Should wants to jump in as well?
Okay.
Ladies first.
Okay, Sidra.
I think one thing that I've definitely done is I've done so many talks on gang culture within the ethnicity sector within mosques. So I've done a couple of talks now on gang culture in youth and all the challenges, not just for parents, but also why are the youths going into gang culture and knife crime and that kind of stuff. And what I did was I actually went to some of the major mosques in London and did that on an Islamic point of view. But I'm actually now thinking of doing that in Essex because we had huge crowds. We had I think there was over 150 people at the first one that I did. And that's when I realised just what a hot topic it was. Then I came back to Essex and I thought I've got to start that in Essex. I will be doing that around the mosques in Essex.
Thanks, Sidra.
Yeah, I can just say, yesterday in the cathedral we had what's called Citizenship Day, and we had 120 young people from schools all over Essex who come to the cathedral, and they do an academic day looking at various cross-curricular disciplines to do with A-level courses. And for the last 2 years we've done a Crime and Deviance Day, and one of the things that struck me yesterday was just how worried young people are themselves about knife crime and knife culture. It was one of the big things that came out in the course of the day. And we had Ian Bickers, who was ex-governor of Wandsworth Prison, talking to us. And Ian said afterwards that actually there's so much press aggravation against young people carrying knives. What's not reported is that the huge numbers of young people who do a lot themselves to stop knife crime, and it's not reported.
Okay. One more point from Daniel or Steve, and then I'll move on. Oh, Stan wants to come in as well. Very quickly, Daniel, then Stan. All right, or the other way around.
Can I go first? Well, I just wanted to add that myself and some other faith leaders sits on the independent advisory group of Essex Police, and obviously hate crimes, racism and youth culture crime is top of the agenda, and so there is considerable input from the faith groups from whatever assistance we can give.
Okay, thanks, Stan. And Jane asked a question. You may want to talk to her over supper about the remarkable work the police are doing in the areas of domestic abuse, which is sadly another area of violence. I will move on.
Can I just make one point, John? Just very quick, just to make the point that most youth work in Britain now is carried out by faith groups, and I think there's massive potential there to give young people a sense of hope about a decent future, and I think that's key to persuading young people not to go down the kind of gang route, which, you know, often they're lonely, they want people to be with, and the gang seems to be the way to go, and faith groups can give an alternative, and are doing.
Thanks, Stephen. Who'd like to go next?
Hi everyone, my name is Shahnaz Nawaz, and I'm part of the mosque project as well as I run a Saturday school. And my question is there anything similar to what Sidra mentioned, Women Together, or an organisation or a body that can be communicated towards people who are living at home, like loneliness? There's a number of ladies, especially Asian ladies, I do know, that they are, even though I run quite a lot of projects at mosque as well, but they're afraid to come out of the houses. And I know they're lonely, but they will not step out. And same goes for the youth group as well. I mean, maybe there's a funding available, but there isn't a platform where youth can come out, or there's an organisation as such who can take it further, so they can stay away from the streets and maybe do something positive.
Thank you. Ivor's bursting.
No, I'm not bursting. do you want something nice and kind?
Well, I was just going to mention that if any of you haven't heard, there is a movement now that's been launched across Essex called United in Kind, which is very much aimed at every one of us thinking about the small acts of kindness we can do, which may be a very small act of kindness for us, but can transform the day of the person who's the recipient. And it's all about how we inspire as many people as we can, just to be thinking in that way. There's a website, unitedinkind.com or something, which you can Google and access it. There's lots of materials and resources there, but that was that piece.
Yeah, I was just going to say that the presentation we had earlier on, the supporting refugee resettlement, I mean, I'm sure the people that spoke would agree that it's not just about rehousing people, it's about connecting them with each other and getting them to interact with each other and to talk to each other as communities. We, at the cathedral, we have a project called English for Women, and it's doing some tremendous work, not just teaching English language skills, but in terms of childcare, in terms of social interaction, in terms of minority groups looking after themselves, getting more confidence about living in the community. So there are actually lots of projects going on around the county, but I think it reflects a problem that was in a question earlier about how do you hear about these different projects. Absolutely. Absolutely.
And what's coming out for me in all of this is that as much as we're doing, every one of you is pointing to another area of need that you're particularly concerned about. Next one.
Yes, good evening. I'm Councillor Jude Deacon, Chelmsford City Council. It's moving on from what's already been mentioned to a certain extent about youth isolation. If you want to include also young mums, because we do have an issue obviously with teenage mums who find themselves cut off often from their families and from support groups, moved from place to place in order to secure accommodation. And I just wondered if what the community was doing to try and help those young people in particular. Thank you.
Okay, I'll ask Andrew or Stephen if they know of any examples elsewhere, but then I'll ask if any of the panel know of any particular initiatives in the area. Thank you, Jude. Andrew or Stephen? Daniel, sorry, Daniel or Stephen.
Well, I've just got to make the point that in the area, I don't know what's happening. I don't know what's happening in Essex. In the area that I represent, the group you described, I think, are exceptionally vulnerable because often on their own, moved around quite quickly, and so they've they've just got connections in one place and are moved somewhere else and have to start all over again. And I do think that the great thing that a lot of faith groups have is buildings, and they're able to open those buildings up, and they don't need to charge for them, unlike most other places. And so there are opportunities, I think, and we're seeing this realised in a number of places, for support groups to be provided and run. And you know, I agree with you. I think that's a really important contribution to a group that otherwise is really struggling.
Thanks, Stephen. Daniel?
I think what we're talking here about is a need for community. And I've got one great example. It's called the Community Hub. It's run by an organisation called Community Resources down in Dagenham. It was a former children's centre, which, you know, children's centres had services and tried to bring community around it. Well, this is flipping it around the other way. It's a community which has brought services in. So I think that's the key. And it's interesting to see colleagues here from Jewish Care. One thing I found in visiting Jewish Care is you can't tell who the volunteer is, and who's the person being volunteered at. I don't know quite how you call it. But I think part of the thing we need to see is, I don't think many of us are very happy when we're just the recipients. We want to be involved, we want to give something back. So I think that's one of the things faith groups do really well, and they have an excellent example of doing that at Community Resources, and I've been very happy to organise visits. But I tell you what really helps from a council perspective, if we can get the services to where the people are already and support those things, rather than having to make people travel to different places.
Right, absolutely. I mean, Jude, I would add to that one about young mums. I'd add about young people leaving care. Gradually, suddenly abandoned, they would feel by the system. And I'd love to still work harder. Jane, I know you are on ex-offenders. Do you know, these people, they leave prison and they may have been in there for any sort of issue, but often bad behaviour rather than criminality, if you see what I mean. And the support levels frustrate the prison governor, let alone anyone else.
Can I just add, John? John mentioned in his talk about faith communities having that intimacy and that knowledge that councils simply can't have. And I can give an example of that in the sense that I can only talk about my own faith, my own church, but lots and lots of churches have baby and toddler groups. Now, you might not think that's particularly important, but that's actually hugely important, because particularly in the more deprived areas, it gives young mums a chance to interact with other young mums, to have their children play in a safe environment. And in some cases, it's the only opportunity that young mums get to get out and to meet other people alike. And that's an example of a very local, coal-face service that I think is underrated and underestimated.
I'll move on to the next question. I promised to bring Sidra and Stone on the next one. So. Who's next?
Rana Walker from Braintree District Interfaith Forum, but also I'm a member of the Baha'i community, and I just wanted to pick up a couple of points mentioned. One was that faith communities have buildings to offer, and I just wanted to say not all faith communities have buildings to offer. What the Baha'i community has is really good programs to offer, but what we struggle with is collaborating with the infrastructures. So, for example, we have a youth empowerment program that would address some of the hopelessness and the issues that 16 to 24-year-olds would have. However, having access to that age group, you know, unless you can contact schools, if you can contact other faith communities that have those youth groups in place, you don't necessarily have that opportunity to build up the intimacy with those individuals. So my question is really, and often we have things like service projects that youth would love to get involved with. And what we run into is a lot of barriers in terms of insurance coverage for underage kids and things like that, that just constantly bars the way for taking these very energetic, very idealistic age group who want to contribute to building communities. And there's all sorts of barriers in their way. So it's kind of knowing who do you talk to connect all the dots, to make things happen. If somebody has a program, how do they plug that into somebody who has a building, who has, you know, so on. I'm not sure if that's a clear enough question.
No, it's a very clear, and I thought it was a very clear illustration of the barriers that we face. So, do you want to say something in this? It may then well be, Andrew, you holding the microphone, you might want to give a clue on that. Sidra?
Yes, after our last conference for Essex Mind and Spirit for Dementia, we were thinking about pinpointing all the faith groups and putting them all on a map. Did we manage to do that in the end?
Good question. I'm glad you asked that.
Because that is, I think, what is needed, is for somebody to collect all the different faith groups, put them on a map, exactly what they do, put them on some kind of website, because we were going to do this for Essex Mind and Spirit. And then anybody who is looking for places where they can go, where they can deliver sessions and things, they can contact their local ones. So I think that's definitely a way forward.
Okay, thank you. I don't know if Andrew, do we have anything across the county?
No, not really at the moment, but I think we're keen to use the local authority reps that sit on the Faith Covenant to do a bit more of a mapping exercise to find out what's out there, what resources are there. So I think that's a bit of work we can take forward.
The mapping is one thing, the connecting is another thing. So just to help people who spot a need in one area or one need, link in with others. But thanks, Sidra. Who's next, Andrew?
Thank you. My name is Olayin Agoro. I'm a group leader in Basildon County. So far, for what people have said so far, I can see some points, but my point is this anniversary talks about faith growth. And I want to believe that we all believe in one thing or the other. We all have something we have faith in. So especially when we are talking about the young, that is my religion. Have we ever had a session, something like this, to come together as a faith group to intercede for these people? We've done a lot of things in the physical. Have we done anything in the spiritual realm concerning, especially the young generation? Because their generation, I tell people, is so scary. Okay. All this program that people have said they've done, I do programs as well. People have done a lot of things. But if we think it's not working, sorry, I can't see your name, sir. Is it John? John. Next to Sidra.
John.
Right. No, you. John, yeah. I just want to come back to what you said. when you came up to talk about what you've gone through in life and how if you decide to talk about things that you've gone through, even in your health and things like that, that means you have faith in something and you still believe that something is still working for you. So what is working for us all in this room as a faith group that can work for the next generation? Thank you.
It's a great challenge, thank you, and I'm sorry I couldn't see you to realise you were pointing at me. It's very useful actually, I never know who's pointing at me. Do you know, I may have a Christian faith, but what matters for me is the respect for every faith that everybody has. I've been to your areas, Sidra, the mosque, and to you, Stan. The depth of faith can move mountains, whichever faith you have. And it's when we all work together, respectful of each other and respectful of those with whom we work, that we make the difference. And I'll come back, no council can do it. No council can have the power and the impetus that we can together. Stan, you've not had a chance to speak for ages, mate. Do you want to say something on this?
Thank you. Well, this is where I see the Faith Covenant making some more progress. We've done remarkably well in a short space of time. But to avoid people dropping through the net, I think the faiths need to work more together. The Covenant has given us the opportunity to get to know each other, and there's no doubt there are far more activities where all the faiths are now coming together and joining in. I mean, just last Sunday at Remembrance Day service in Chelmsford, all the faiths were represented there. And there are lots of examples, churches together. The Jewish community, like the Baha'i, we haven't got a building of our own, we use the Methodist Church, and that's fairly unique, I think. In fact, the Methodists talk about that in their conference. I think we're quite good at looking after our own individuals when we're approached, but I think what we need to do is to have the opportunity to join, and so if we know a Jewish person or a Muslim person, we can help them as individuals and not just look after our own faith people.
Thanks, Dan. You wanted one quick word?
Yes, one quick word. That is, I'm chair of the Militants Interfaith Forum, and sometimes people ask me, what's the point? Why do you do it? And the simple answer is that we work on what unites us rather than what divides us. And I think that's the message that has to go forward.
It's a lovely point. I almost want to finish there, but I've been told I've got to take one more question. I'm sure there's one more, Andrew.
That's incredibly kind. I've got the last question. My name is Julian Gibbs, and I work here at the university, so I'm very pleased to see a lot of people coming into the university. I also happen to live in Ipswich, so I don't live in Essex, and I'm a counsellor, as some other colleagues who have mentioned previously are as well. I'm quite unique. I have no religious faith, but I feel very much at home amongst people of faith. So I have a different form of faith, and that's not a religious faith, but for me it's about tolerance. And what I've seen where I live in Ipswich in the last few years, I've seen people of faith experience attacks on them. I've seen people's hijabs being pulled. I've seen racist language. My own partner, who's not white, has been told to go home. So it's about how we, of people of faith and non-faith, take a role of leadership to say that people are welcome, we value the contribution, and very much there is more that unites us than divides us. And that's the message I would like to see the Covenant, which I think the Covenant is doing, and strengthen that going forward.
Thank you, Julian. And less a question or a statement, but does anybody in the panel just want to add anything? No?
Can I just make a point, John?
Yes, Stephen, of course.
Reflecting on the points that have been made about young people, I think the key thing that young people want is to have a sense of belonging to something. And actually not just young people. If you look around our communities today, there seem to be increasingly fewer things that you can properly have a sense of belonging to. And I think one of the really important contributions that faith groups are making now is giving the opportunity to belong. And I think if you belong to a church or a mosque or a temple or a gurdwara or a synagogue, as long as each of those places is seen as part of the wider community, and events like this can really help with that, then belonging to one of those things extends to having a sense of belonging to the community. And it seems to me that contribution that faith groups are making at the moment is more and more important, and it's more and more a bigger and bigger proportion of people who are looking to faith groups to provide that, as others are not doing so.
Thanks, Stephen. And Julian, many thanks for the point you made. You're a lucky man. You live in Suffolk, you can have the ambition of one day moving to Essex. Very good. But those themes that came through at the end about focusing on what unites us, on tolerance, on our common values, and that sense of belonging that we can bring to whichever group or individual we are dealing with. And taking us away sometimes from what may seem to others as a competitiveness of faith to a collaboration in faith. Councillor Susan Barker is going to close the session for us now before supper. Can I just ask you to thank Sidra, Stan, Ivor, Daniel and Stephen for being on the panel tonight.
Thank you very much, everybody. I'm Susan Barker. I'm one of John's colleagues on the Cabinet at Essex, and culture and communities fall into my portfolios, a lot of other things. I'm just very much here to thank you all for coming, for staying to the end. I've heard some brilliant things, and I think one of the things I liked was getting ready for your baby. It does sound so much nicer than a parenting class. And, you know, I was just, that led me on to thinking, you know, down by the library in Chelmsford, we've got something called Mid-Essex Family Something Unit. Well, if it had a more attractive name, maybe a few more people would come in and find out what's going on. But I think learning from some of the lessons there, I think, as John said, we all need a faith. It doesn't have to be a religious faith, but a faith in something, faith we believe in. I think some of the examples we're seeing of stuff going on is brilliant, and I would commend you to keep up the good work, and we'll have some supper.